I was up at 2 a.m. doom scrolling crypto Twitter when I saw a rumor about an XRP ETF that nearly made me spit out my coffee. Sounds insane, right? Well, I had to find out if this was for real, and what I discovered actually sent me down on a roller coaster. So, here's the thing. I'm a long-time XRP holder, and the idea of a spot XRP ETF has always felt like a distant fantasy. Suddenly, hearing whispers that a launch might be just around the corner, I kind of got chills. If there's even a chance that this is legit, it could be an absolute game changer, and I knew that I had to dig even deeper. So in this video, I'm going to be taking you along on my personal quest to uncover the truth behind all of this XRP ETF buzz. Is this countdown to launch actually now on? What could it mean for XRP's future and for those of us holding bags of it? And how much should we all believe the hype? So stick around, because what I found was equal parts exciting and just a little sobering. And like I said, I wasn't alone in this midnight madness. Now, I was bouncing theories off of folks in our Discord, trying to separate the fact from the FOMO. Now, this is a free educational group. The link is in the description, and trust me, nights like this are exactly why it exists. All right, take a deep breath, grab a new fresh coffee or tea, there's no judgment, and let's get into this wild XRP ETF adventure together. So, first, here's a quick rewind to set the scene. Picture this, it's late 2024. The SEC does the unthinkable and approves not one, but two crypto ETFs, right? We're talking Bitcoin and Ethereum. And when I say 2024, I do mean 2023. Anyway, that kind of cracked open a door that kind of has been, locked shut for many years. Now, the moment that it opened, guess what happened? A stampede of applications for other crypto ETFs came rushing in. Now, I remember thinking at the time, okay, Bitcoin and Ether got their golden tickets, but what about XRP? There's not a chance anytime soon, especially with all the regulatory baggage that XRP had. But now you can fast forward to now, and here we are. Legitimate companies, big ones, are actually eyeing to launch an XRP ETF. And I still kind of can't believe it. Now, you might be thinking, who are these brave souls? Well, we're talking about asset managers like Bitwise, Grayscale's 21 shares, Franklin Templeton, you name it. Now, these are big players. Some of those names that you only hear when serious money is actually involved. And they didn't just file once and call it a day. No. They've been tweaking and polishing their applications for months now, trying to get everything just right. See, back in July, the SEC laid out some new listing standards for crypto ETFs, and in response, at least 7 firms simultaneously updated their XRP ETF filings. Basically, it was a coordinated move. Why altogether? Well, probably because they see that the SEC gave them a list of fix this, adjust that kind of stuff, and none of these guys want to kind of give the regulators any reason to say no. Now, one of the big changes that they all made was to allow their fund more flexibility in how the ETF shares can be created and redeemed. So in plain English, if these ETFs do launch, well, they can handle people buying in or cashing out using either actual XRP tokens or just cash, or even other assets in kind. Now, it's kind of like giving the fund multiple ways to make sure that it always has the right amount of XRP or cash on hand. Not the kind of sexiest little detail, I know, but it is an important one for making these things work more smoothly behind the scenes. Now, all of these technical tweaks, they tell me one thing, that these companies are serious. They're dotting every I and they're crossing every single T, basically bending over backwards to appease the SEC. And they're doing it in unison, so which kind of looks a lot like coordination. So to me, that hints that the SEC is actually engaging with them, like saying, you want approval? Okay, well, here's what you need to change. And the issuers are like, yes, sir, we'll do it right away. Now, if you're an optimist, that's a very good sign, right? Regulators saying jump and the company's responding with how high means maybe, just maybe, approval isn't just a pipe dream. Now, here is where the plot thickens. Now, I came across a Reuters report via an X post from 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘, an ETF expert that I do follow. That kind of said something pretty huge, right? Now, by the end of this week, the final wave of amendments could actually be filed for the XRP and Solana ETF applications. Final amendments, as in the last tweaks before the SEC has everything that it needs to make a decision. So, when I saw that, the kind of word final, I kid you not, my pulse sped up just a bit. Now, 𝗕𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘's post basically said those filings are pretty far along. Countdown to launch is on. Countdown to launch is on. So when I read that, I kind of got goosebumps. Like hearing the faint rumble of a rocket about to lift off. You know that something big is coming, even if it is not even visible yet. So at this point, I'm picturing a literal countdown clock in my head. T minus how many days exactly? So I started digging into the timelines of all of this, and it turns out that the SEC's decision deadlines for these XRP ETF proposals are all clustered in October, like sprinkles on a donut. Right, so the big first day is October 18th. That's when the SEC is due to rule on Grayscale's XRP ETF. Grayscale, by the way, isn't small potatoes. They're the kind of folks behind the big Bitcoin and Ethereum trusts. The very next day, October 19th, is another decision for an ETF by 21 shares. October 20th, one for Bitwise. Then a short kind of breather, and boom, two more on October 23rd, CoinShares and Canary Capital. And one on October 24th, that's WisdomTree. So that's 5 XRP ETF decisions in the span of just about a week. It's pretty crazy, right? It's kind of basically XRP ETF week at the SEC. Now, will the SEC actually wait for each of those exact dates to drop the news? Maybe, maybe not. Regulators sometimes like to bundle announcements together, like they did with the kind of bunch of Bitcoin or Ether ETF stuff, a couple years ago, right? So it's possible that the chair, the SEC chair and the team might go, you know what, just announce all of these XRP ETF decisions all at once and get it over with. Now, it could be a simultaneous green light for all, a blanket kind of denial, or even a mix and a match, right? Your guess is going to be as good as mine with that. But the bottom line is this: by late October, we're going to have a definitive answer. The countdown ends then. And so here I am, absorbing all of this information, and my emotions are ping-ponging all over the place. Part of me is like, this is it. XRP is finally getting the recognition that it deserves. And the other part of me is cautious, saying, whoa there, let's not get too carried away. The SEC, of course, could still slam on the brakes. Now, I've been excited about crypto news before, and I've gotten burned, so a healthy bit of skepticism is kind of like my safety net. Now, you know what? I'm going to hit pause right here for a second and drop something rather important, just so that we're all clear, especially since I'm admittedly kind of hyped up right now. Now, this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, we had to get that out of the way. We all need that reality check, right? But let's get back to the story because, I have some thoughts that are just swirling around here. So let's talk scenarios, best case. One or several of these XRP ETF applications get the SEC's blessing in October. And if that happens, oh boy, that means institutional money. Now I'm talking pension funds, hedge funds, the whole Wall Street crew can finally buy into XRP through a regulated, respectable vehicle. Now we would likely see a shift from the most retail-driven market to one where big institutions start pouring in. Not saying that the price will moon overnight, of course, but historically, when institutional gates open, it's pretty bullish over time. At least the very least, I should say, it could boost market confidence in a rather big way. I mean, let's just think about Bitcoin's spot ETF launch, right? Or even just the rumors of that spot XRP ETF, that had kind of caused a whole host of speculative investment. Bitcoin's price was running pretty hard, like it had rocket fuel, right? Now, XRP is a slightly different animal, I get it, but I could see a newly kind of approved ETF giving it a nice little jolt. I've already seen people on Twitter, X, I know, right, throwing out some pretty wild predictions. $10, $20, $100, but let's be real, those are just super speculative, right? I'm not here to kind of promise you Lambos and moon vacations, but an ETF approval could certainly make the price do something rather interesting, even if it is just from the initial hype and the FOMO. I mean, even the anticipation of these filings being updated was enough to bump up XRP's price by about 7% in a single day. So, imagine the reaction if an actual approval hits the news. Now, what's the worst case? Well, the SEC says no, not now, to all of those applications. Well, that would sting, wouldn't it? In that scenario, all of this ETF excitement deflates like a balloon, and I bet XRP's price would take a quick plunge, probably followed by a whole bunch of disappointed posts on social media and a few I told you so's from the skeptics. Now, it would basically prolong this years-long stalemate that XRP has had with the United States regulators. Remember, right, XRP, had been in limbo for many years over the SEC's allegations of security status. So a rejection, I guess, would feel like, back to the purgatory box. But hey, then it's back to business as usual for us XRP holders. We keep calm and we just hodl on, right? Maybe with an extra whiskey on the side to ease the pain. Now, don't worry, I haven't forgotten about Solana either. Solana is also in this race too, with its own ETF filings, along with others like Cardano. And speculation has been flying on which one, XRP or Sol, that might actually get the approval first. Now, it's almost like watching two horses neck and neck towards the finish line. Now, some analysts even suggest that XRP might beat Solana to the punch, which, would actually be ironic since Solana was kind of the market darling for a little while, at least whilst it could keep the lights on. Now, if both get approved, well, that's pretty huge news for crypto in general. It would basically say, hey, it's not just Bitcoin and Ether anymore. Welcome to the altcoin ETF era, right? Some dubbing this the altcoin ETF season. Now, if Solana gets an ETF and XRP doesn't, then I will have some pretty strong feelings about that. Mostly, why not XRP too? But let's also stay optimistic and maybe both could get the nod in the end. Now, with all of this news that first kind of hit me, I did kind of what any half-crazy crypto enthusiast might go ahead and do. I opened up one of my favorite exchange applications to see what the market was doing, and there it was, staring at me, XRP's order book on Blowfin, one of my go-to exchanges, by the way. Then the link that's in the description is an affiliate link that supports the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. Anyway, taking a look at that at 3 a.m, and you know what? It was surprisingly calm. There was no huge pump, there was no crash, it was just kind of normal. So it kind of felt like the calm before a storm. Now, I was tempted to market buy a whole chunk of more XRP right there and then out of pure excitement. Like, a big part of me was like, this is it. Get in before the big boys do. But I took a breath and I remembered not to FOMO myself into oblivion. In the end, I did add just a little to my position, emphasis on just a little. I'm talking responsible, right? Won't be losing any sleep over it kind of amount of money. Because hey, I want to have a bit more skin in the game should things go really well. But I won't be ruined and wrecked if things go south either. So, what I did do, though, is to kind of set price alerts on BitGet, which is another exchange that I sometimes use, right? Affiliate link also in the description as well, so thanks for supporting the channel if you do sign up and trade through them. Now, that alert is basically there so that if I'm away from my screen and XRP suddenly rips or dips, then I'm going to know immediately, right? Whether it's an approval kind of causing a spike or a denial kind of causing a dump, right? I'll kind of get that ping on my phone, and you've got to stay prepared for all of that volatility, if you know what I mean. And here's a funny little side note. A friend of mine who's actually skeptical about crypto actually messaged me after seeing some of the blurb on CNBC about all of these crypto ETFs potentially launching. He goes, "So, XRP might get an ETF. Should I buy some XRP now?" This is the same guy who, when XRP was under 50 cents during the SEC lawsuit, told me that I was crazy for holding it. So I had to give him the whole disclaimer spiel, like, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money, man. And I also couldn't resist teasing, "Oh, now you're interested, are you?" It kind of just shows how an ETF headline on mainstream news can suddenly pique the interest from people who normally wouldn't touch crypto. And that actually gave me a little bit of perspective here, because if an ETF does launch, then this might be a wave of new people coming into XRP. People who didn't actually want the hassle of setting up a crypto wallet or dealing with the exchanges, but are totally fine buying an XRP ETF in their kind of regular brokerage account. It's kind of like new doors could open. And that's partly why I'm so excited beyond just the price talk. It's also the legitimization. It's like XRP graduating from college and getting its Wall Street diploma. Suddenly, it's in the big leagues. So let's think about it. Not that long ago, XRP was the problem child for the regulators, right? It wasn't cool. It was delisted from the United States exchanges. It was persona non grata in American crypto markets. Fast forward to now, though, and the court case is over, it's resolved, XRP's trading back on some major US exchanges, and the possibility of an ETF, well, talk about a comeback story. It's like a redemption arc worthy of a Netflix documentary. Now, I'm not saying that if the ETF gets approved, everything is going to be rainbows and unicorns, oh no. But it would, of course, mark a bit of a turning point. It would mean that the narrative shifts from XRP is just too risky or controversial, all the way to XRP is a valuable enough asset that we all have to have a freaking ETF for it. And that psychological shift could be absolutely huge. Now, as we approach the finish line of this saga, I'm trying to keep my cool, right? There's a saying, buy the rumor and sell the news. So in crypto, that often kind of holds true. The rumor or the anticipation can pump things up, and the actual news can sometimes be anticlimactic or even trigger a sell-off event, if, of course, it's not as great as expected. So I keep reminding myself, and I'll remind you too, whatever happens in October, let's stay level-headed, right? If we get an approval, amazing. But that's when the real work begins, at least of seeing how the product actually performs and how much money actually flows into it, right? If we get a rejection, hey, it won't be the first setback in crypto, right? And it won't be the last either. Either way, I'm glad that I took you on this little journey with me, right? Because I started last night with a jolt of adrenaline and a million different questions. And I'm ending it kind of feeling cautiously optimistic, I guess. Optimistic because, the signs truly do look better than ever for XRP to get that mainstream nod. But I'm also cautious because, well, I've learned never to underestimate the SEC's capacity to say not so fast. So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, for me, it's that patience and conviction can sometimes pay off in ways that you don't expect. A few years ago, the idea of an XRP ETF was kind of laughable, but today it's on the verge of possibly even happening. Whether it does happen next month or takes a little bit longer, the very fact that we're actually talking about this seriously means that the crypto landscape is evolving. Now, this whole experience also reminded me that being in crypto is kind of like being on a roller coaster in the dark. Right? You don't see all of the twists coming. You just hold on and scream, sometimes in joy and sometimes in panic. And you know that, that's just part of the thrill, right? If you're still watching here, and I have a feeling that you're going to thrive on that thrill too, at least just a little. Now, I want to thank you all for sticking with me through this story. It's been a personal one, and honestly one of the more exciting rabbit holes that I've been down in a little while. And hey, whatever happens with XRP's ETF, you can bet that I'm going to be discussing it, celebrating it, or commiserating it on that Discord server and in the comments down below. All right, I've rambled enough, so if you've enjoyed this little adventure, make sure to smash that like button, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next video, and I'll catch you over there.